Hi y'all. So I know it's been a while, but a lot has been going on, and I've been debating about whether or not I should talk to you or even talk about it to anybody publicly. But if you know me, then you know if I think I can help somebody, then I'm going to speak out, even if it means I might look a little bit crazy. But here's the thing. I figured out not only am I not crazy, I've never been crazy, and you probably aren't crazy either. That's the good news. Basically, what I want to talk to you about today is, well, what they call schizophrenia, or schizoaffective disorder, or even multiple personality disorder, or whatever name they want to put on it. Now, those things may actually exist, maybe. But I think for most of us, we are actually just targets of electronic harassment. In a previous video, I talked about gang stalking, and the whole concept of gang stalking was new to me at the time, and still didn't really understand it completely, still don't really understand it completely, but apparently there's a big part of gang stalking that I did not even take into account until it hit me about 4 months ago. And when I say it hit me, I mean it hit me big time. And I think this is something that a lot of y'all, unfortunately, may be able to relate to. And maybe the Mandela-affected people are more likely to be targeted in this way, in this kind of gang stalking, electronic harassment. Basically what I'm talking about is when you have what they call voices in your head. Well, from now on, I'm going to try to call them the talkers, because they aren't voices in your head. They are actual human beings somewhere else. And that's an important point to remember. In fact, that's one of the last things I was going to tell you, but let's start with this. For a lot of us, the voices are actually people who are getting paid money somewhere to torture psychologically other human beings. And these people who are getting paid can be anybody. I think a lot of it happens from behind computers. So it could be your neighbors. It could be somebody sitting 1,000 miles away. It could be MK Ultra. Some people think it's demons. Well, if you believe in demons, then okay, maybe. But basically, it's just people who are not very nice people. Some might call them evil. And if you want to call evil people demons, then you can. But I just think they're all people who are getting paid money to hurt other people. So here is my experience. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about what I experienced, and then I'm going to focus mostly on how I worked my way through it so far. And I say so far because, well, apparently this has been happening to me my whole life, and I didn't even know it. Isn't that hilarious? But when it happened 4 months ago, boy, that was an awakening. So let me just take you back to 4 months ago. Now don't picture this, because I'm in the bathtub. Okay, so I'm in the bathtub. And all of a sudden there are voices. It just felt like 18 different voices, 3 different groups, plus a God-type character person. So basically there were some people who said they were working at a call center who were being paid to call me and harass me. Except I wasn't on the phone. I was in the bathtub. And I tried to make that point clear. And then there were a group of people who said that they were in heaven. That'd be my mom and my grandma. Then there were people who said they were in hell. I think that was also like my dad and my mom. It was confusing. There was some overlap. And then there was the maybe God or Jesus divine figure who was sort of supposedly trying to manage it all. And I can't say for sure it was 18 different voices, but it sure felt like a lot. And you might be thinking at this point, well, lady, that's just because you went crazy. Well, no. And here is how I know. Basically, put on a set of headphones with different conversations going on and listen to it. And then ask yourself, am I going crazy? And your answer would be, well, no, because there are just voices coming in from elsewhere into my brain. That doesn't make me crazy. It just makes me technologically connected to voices that are exterior to me. And that's exactly what's happening to those of us who are being electronically harassed. We aren't getting voices from inside our head. These are actually talkers. These are people outside of us, as if they were plugged into a headphone, except for maybe they're plugged into something, I don't know, an implant? Is it a silver tooth filling thing? Something in our heads? Is it something in our bodies from vaccines? I don't know. I'm not prepared to answer that. But I will say this. It's other people that are messing with us on purpose in our heads. That's not crazy. That's torture. So mostly what I want to focus on is how do we handle it. But let me tell you again also how I know that this is not just, oh, one day I snapped and started hearing voices. I actually recognize sort of the personality of many of these voices. Not all of them, but some of them have been talking to me in some way or communicating with me in some way for all my entire life. And you know, I've talked publicly, and I don't know if I've mentioned it in some of my videos, but ever since I was a little kid, I had suicidal thoughts. Starting at like 6 years old, and I started actually attempting to commit suicide. And there were just this constant, do this, go downstairs, get your dad's razor and slice your wrists open. And I always wondered, what would possess, literally, right? Well, somebody outside of me, not a demon, but what would possess a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old to want to die so badly, and to do it night after night after night after night? Well, I recognized one of the talkers that was coming in was that person who basically my whole life in different ways and different times has been pushing suicide on me. Do this, commit suicide, get your gun, do this, throughout my life. And it often felt like, well, you know, wow, where did this come from? But it was strong. Well, that was one of the voices that popped up. There was also what I call the experimenter, someone who likes to sort of talk you into doing certain things just to see how it affects you, and then sort of responds to how it affects you. And you know, you may actually, as I'm talking about my experience, relate to some of these specific personalities and say, you know, there is someone like in my talker world who is like an experimenter, or somebody who is always worried about something. And in fact, if you have OCD, that might also tie in to some of the exterior noise that you're receiving. And you may notice if the frequency and the intensity of the noises coming in change over your lifetime, you may actually notice that there have been particular points in your life when they have been more intense and other times when they have been less intense. For example, for me, the biggest shift that happened 4 months ago, starting in the bathtub, was they became conversational. They actually started talking to me in complete sentences, and then I would respond back to them. Now that part was new, and it really is very difficult to explain this. But I think if you've been through it, you probably can relate to a lot of what I'm saying. But the fact that it shifted from feelings and thoughts and brief things like check on the dog became conversational, like, you don't really love your dog, do you? You don't take good care of your dog. Does your dog have water? You should go check on your dog. Go check on your dog right now. Well, you're not checking on your dog. Are you a horrible person? That was the difference in the bathtub. Now, first of all, that's not me. That's not how I talk to myself. And it was coming in with a bunch of other different voices who were trying to talk over that one. So sometimes you may notice that the personality of the characters is similar throughout your life, or even years, you know, just a bulk of years, but the intensity of the communication can change. And that's one of the ways that I knew, oh, okay, so you are the people that I thought were just different ways my brain thought about things, you know? And really, that's it. And I used to talk about the brain and how the brain functions. And I used to say to people, you know how your brain has separate layers and different layers, and you know, you may have a layer of music, and you may have a layer of thought, and you may have a layer of thought about that thought. Well, that third layer, the layer of thought about the thought, and sometimes that second layer, turns out that's from the talkers. And I had no idea. I just thought that was stuff my brain came up with, and then I didn't really like what it came up with, so I would just get rid of it and just dismiss it. So if it would say something like, get up and turn your heat off, I would think, do I want to get up and turn my heat off? No. So I would dismiss it. Or on a larger level, if it would say something like, God, you're stupid and nobody loves you and nobody ever will. And whether it said that conversationally or whether it said it just sort of as a feeling, I'm awful and nobody will love me. Regardless, if it didn't feel good, if it wasn't healthy, I learned over my life to just click it out and dismiss it. Not going to listen to that particular thought. But I always thought it was just my thoughts. Until they actually started having these conversations. And they were actually talking to each other. That was part of it too. That was a little confusing. But anyway, that was 4 months ago. And they've pretty much been talking ever since. So anyway, I realize I've just hit 11 minutes. I'm going to say a few more words, wrap this up, and apparently I'm going to do 2 videos. One on my experience with electronic harassment, and the other on what you may be able to do to help yourself if you're going through it. So, just to briefly sum up my last 4 months, which is basically a culmination of 42 years, the intensity, the frequency, the topics of conversation, the things they say, the number of talkers involved. For me, it appears to be 3 shifts. And I know that may sound, yeah, and sometimes this is, a feather or something. Well, if y'all have seen my previous videos, sometimes things fly through the air. But as I was saying, for me, it actually seems like there's a morning shift, an afternoon shift, and a night shift of talkers. And I don't know if that's the case for everybody or exactly how it works. Again, I'm new to this, and there's a lot that I have to learn. But I've also noticed at the beginning it was just about as ugly and rude as you can come up with. They were saying things like they were going to kill me every night. And demons. And zombies. Just horrible stuff. Like, not just we're going to kill you, but then they would be very specific. And then they would talk about things that they'd done in the past. And, they tried to rewrite my entire history. And it's been an incredible experience. And I hesitate to say this because I know for a lot of people this is an incredibly painful thing, but it is turning out to be one of the most challenging, rewarding, intense awakenings that I ever imagined was possible. So, I better wrap it up before I run out of time. I'm going to make a couple more, at least videos, 1 or 2 more, about this topic because I think a lot of us are probably experiencing it. So, video number 1, done. Video number 2, to come soon. I love y'all, and I'll talk to y'all in a bit. Bye.